Management Studies IGNOU presents an audiobook on the course MMPC-002 Human Resource Management for MBA program. Presenting Block 2 Sourcing of Human Resources, Unit-7 Socialization and Mobility Part 1. After completing this unit, you should be able to understand the concept of individual role and organizational socialization, discuss the importance of status and socialization, identify the socialization factors and importance of job socialization, explain the process of induction, and understand the concept and types of mobility and separation. Concept of organizational socialization. Socialization refers to the process by which persons acquire the knowledge, skills, and disposition that make them more or less able members of their society. We have all undergone this process many times. Certainly, significant socialization occurs during infancy and early childhood. We are born into this world with potential for a very wide range of behavior, but we learn from our parents and other close associates to behave within a narrower range that is customary and acceptable. People face re-socialization on entering the first grade, joining an athletic team or the Scouts, matriculating into college, and learning their first job. With all of these early socialization experience, it might be thought that the adult should easily adapt to new social situations. Actual and anticipatory socialization are vitally important in all our lives. However, we can look in greater depth at one important segment, that is organizational socialization. A person will be directly involved in this process when he or she leaves college and start working career. Eventually, as managers and professionals, the person will be responsible for the socialization of newcomers and subordinates in his or her organizations. Individual and the organization. The process of integration. The individual joining any organization develops new values, attitudes, and behavior appropriate for membership. The problems associated with entrance into and adaptation to work organizations are issues of adult socialization. In complex societies with rapid technological and sociological changes, it is impossible to socialize the young child to all future roles. Every individual must face continuing re-socialization to new situations throughout his or her life. One of the most important periods of adult socialization is when the individual is on the boundary of a new organization, ready to become a member. There is a great deal of difference between being an outsider, looking in, and being a full-fledged and accepted member. Most organizations select individuals who can become members and require newcomers to behave in appropriate ways. Organizational socialization. The process of becoming an accepted member is a reciprocal process. The individual adapts, but so does the organization. Every time an organization takes in a new member too, it's subject to a new influences, increasing likelihood of change. For example, the opening up of business and other organizations to greater participation by women and minorities not only results in the need to socialize these groups, but also require change in the organizations themselves. Self-image and membership. Individuals hold a certain image of themselves when entering the organization. This undergoes changes and they interact with the organization and learn new tasks and roles. The new lawyer is likely to have a significantly different self-image after she has been in the law firm for 6 months than when she started. Organizational life gives opportunities to test her knowledge and skills and to assess her own strengths and weakness. Membership often requires the development of new values appropriate to the position. To become a successful member, the individual must accommodate, at least to some degree, the goals, value, and practices of the organization. The new CA fresh from examination in accounting theory and practice may have to modify his approach significantly to fit actual organizational practices. We have stressed here the initial process of integrating into the organization, but just as in the world at large, the process is never complete. Later on, the individual may be transferred, promoted, moved to another organization, or even change careers. Technological and structural shifts may occur, task requirements may be modified, and social groups may change. All of these changes may require the re-socialization of the person into a new situation. Interactions between individual and organization. How many organizations are you member of? How many affect your life in important ways? These are simple questions but require some thought. If you consider all organizations that have an influence, direct or oblique, on your life and behavior, the list would likely be in the hundreds and still probably would not be complete. For example, in driving to school, an organization of which you are a voluntary member, your behavior is influenced by the speed limit, a product of governmental institutions. Never the total person. Although we recognize that we are in constant interaction with organizations, we should remember that they never encompass the total person. Organizations are designed to accomplish specific purposes, and they engage only a segment of persons in accomplishing these objectives. They are most interested in the specific behavior that affects individual performance in meeting these goals. A person may be a champion bowler, a great husband and father, a member of the church choir, and a subscriber to Playboy, but these affiliations are likely to be irrelevant to the organization if his task is to put 2 bolts on the left front door of the cars coming down the assembly line. Managers are interested in having individuals adapt their behavior in organizationally relevant matters. Furthermore, the work situation requires that the individual shape a vast repertoire of potential behaviors to a narrow range of specific actions. It seeks to utilize only part of a person's skills and abilities. This implies that there is always limited integration or socialization of the total person into the organization. People who perform organizational tasks must be sustained by factors outside the boundary of the organization. The organization is not the total world of the individual. It is not a society. People must fulfill other social roles. Besides, society has shaped them in many ways which affect their ability to perform organizational tasks. A man has a marital status, ethnic identification, religious affiliations, a distinct personality, friends, to name only a few. Daily, people come contaminated into the organization. Never the total organization. Just as the organizational never encompasses the total, the individual does not comprehend and experience the total organization. The individual's organizational horizon is limited. People in organizations have limited perspectives of the total organization because of differences in hierarchical level, task assigned, departmental affiliations, and interpersonal contacts. Moreover, different people subject to the same organizational influences may have different perceptions. It is often starting for professors who receive evaluations of their courses to find vast differences among individual responses. Some students may rate their course and instructor as excellent, while others rate it as a disaster. Similarly, workers performing the same task and receiving approximately the same rewards sometimes have significantly different perceptions about the leadership style and quality of the work environment. It is quite obvious that we perceive and react to new situations in different ways because of past socializations to life and our own personalities. Self-concept and organizational socialization. When joining an organization, you're not just selling your physical and mental abilities. Like it or not, you're also bringing along your psychic self in the bargain. Your own self-concept plays a major part in the socialization process. Self-concept is the way you perceive and judge yourself. It is your way of thinking about the kind of person you really are. Do you see yourself as a leader or follower? Do you have high need for power, achievement, or social affiliations? Are you aggressive or passive? People have the unique capacity for thinking about their own behavior and their impact on others. Self-concept is of vital importance in the process of organizational socialization. When the self-concept is compatible with one's organizational role and requirements, the person is likely to be motivated, oriented to task performance, and satisfied. However, when self-concept and organizational role are not compatible, then integration is difficult and motivation, performance, and satisfaction are likely to be low. This does not imply that self-concept is totally fixed. Indeed, one of the important aspects of organizational socialization is the potential modification in self-concept. The MBA graduate who thought of herself in passive terms may be thrust into a leadership position where she is effective and gratified. Part of the organizational socialization process may be learning to develop a self-concept appropriate for the new situation. Each of us learns to construct somewhat different selves for the different kinds of situations in which we are called on to perform and for the different kinds of roles we are expected to take. It is unlikely that we can change our basic personalities and value systems substantially, but we can develop new social selves in terms of new attitudes, competencies, behavior patterns, and ways of relating to others in different situations. To some extent, we can redesign ourselves to fit the role requirements of new situations. Concept of role and organizational socialization. The idea of roles comes from sociology, and it is the pattern of actions expected of a person in his activities involving others. It arises as a result of the position one occupied in the social structure as he or she interacts with other people. In order to be able to coordinate his work with others in an organization, one needs some way to anticipate their behavior as one interacts with them. Role performs these functions in the social system. A person functions in roles both on the job and away from it. One person performs the occupational role of worker, the family role of a father, the social role of a club president, and many others. In his various roles, he is both buyer and seller, boss and subordinate, a father and a son, and an advisor and a seeker of advice. Each role calls for different types of behavior. Within the work environment alone, a worker has more than one role. He may be a worker in Group A, a subordinate or foreman in B, and machinist, a member of a union, and a representative on the safety committee. Undoubtedly, role is the most complexly organized response pattern of which a human being is capable. Activities of manager and workers alike are guided by their role perceptions, that is, how they think they are supposed to act in a given situation. Since managers perform many different roles, they must be highly adaptive in order to change from one role to another quickly. The factory foreman's role particularly requires that he be adaptive in working with the extremes of subordinate and superior, staff and line, technical and non-technical, and education and uneducated. A role set is the entire configuration of surrounding roles as they affect a particular role, such as the foreman's role just described. That is, all the different persons with whom the foreman interacts in this role of foreman have role expectations concerning the way in which he should act, and these expectations collectively make up the role set for his role as foreman. This role set arises partly from the nature of the job itself, because managers in equivalent jobs but in different companies tend to perceive and play their roles in about the same way. The existence of role expectations means that a manager or other person interacting with someone else needs to perceive 3 role values, and Sean interacting with someone else needs to perceive 3 role values. First, he needs to see his own role as required by the function he is performing. Then he needs to see the role of the person he contacts. Finally, he needs to see his role as seen by the other person. Obviously, he cannot meet the needs of others unless he can perceive what they expect of him. Research shows that where there is wide variance in a manager's role, perception of his job, and the employee's role expectation of that job, there tends to be poor motivation and inefficiency. They may even have difficulty communicating because they will not be talking about the same things in the same way. For example, difficulties may arise because a manager sees his role as that of a hard-boiled pusher, but his employees expect the opposite. When role expectations of a job are materially different or opposite, the incumbent in the job tends to be in role conflict because he cannot meet one expectation without rejecting the other. A president in one company faced role conflict, for example, when he learned that both the controller and the personnel director expected him to allocate. Complex web as they interact, the new organizational planning function to their departments. Regarding the existence of role conflict, research suggests that a manager bases his decision primarily on legitimacy, which expectations he thinks is more right and reasonable, and sanction how he thinks he will be affected if he follows one expectation in preference to the other. In case role expectations are substantially unknown because of poor communication or are inadequately defined, role ambiguity exists and it is more difficult to predict how a person in that role will act. From a manager's point of view, a fuller understanding of roles should help him know what others expect of him and how he should act. Knowing this, he should be more adaptable to each unique role relationship. His decision-making should improve because he will understand why other people are acting the way they are. He will also recognize the variety of roles each employee plays and will try to provide motivations and satisfactions for those several job roles. Status and socialization. The social rank of a person in comparison with others in a social system is referred to as status. Two kinds of status exist: formal and informal. Formal status refers to the rank of people as designated by the authority structure of an organization. Informal status refers to the social rank which others accord to a person because of their feelings towards him. It is the position which one has in an informal social system. Status relationships need ranking and comparison, so two or more persons are required to make a status relationship. One must be higher and the other lower. Individuals are brought together in status systems or status hierarchies which define their rank relative to others in the system. The desire for status is one of the strongest motivation forcing among people at work. The term lose face is often used as a synonym for loss of status in personal interaction, and its seriousness is widely recognized. Status congruence or consistency reflects the degree of agreement among various indicators of status for a person. An employee who lacks status congruence is regarded with ambiguity and anxiety by those in this group. Usually he is not as well accepted as people do not know where to place him in their status system. In one company, for example, a very skilled young toolmaker was added to a department of old toolmakers. Though his skill merited the status they had, his age did not, and they would not accept him. He finally chose a different company having some younger toolmakers. Loss of status is more than loss of prestige. It seriously affects personality. People therefore become quite responsible in order to protect and develop their status. Bernard comments, and I quote, "The desire for improvement of status and especially the desire to protect status appears to be the basis of a sense of general responsibility." Unquote. Status is important only in the particular social group where the status is accorded, rather than being some general characteristic which goes wherever a person goes. One executive recently told how he worked hard for a promotion and the status it would bring him with his friends. The promotion finally came, but it required him to move another city where he was unknown. He said that the promotion was hollow because in this new location, his new friends were his peers and looked on him as just another manager. The importance of status requires management to give attention to how it arises and whether management actions affect it. Some of the status influences which arise from organization are organizational level, type of work and skill in it, working conditions, pay, seniority, education, etc. Socialization factors in organizational socialization. People coming into organization are not like raw material inputs possessing rigid specifications. No amount of quality control and inspections will ensure that they are 99.99% perfect and uniform. They are individuals influenced by hereditary factors, previous socialization processes, and their other life experiences. In the socialization process, organizations are working with highly variable, heterogeneous, and somewhat imperfect human resources. To the extent that individuals have faced significantly different acculturation processes in their earlier lives, they represent different inputs to the socialization process. Many studies have indicated that workers coming from different communities, that is, rural versus urban, from different social classes, or who are in other ways differentiated by past socialization, have different expectations, motivations, behaviors, and satisfactions. These groups represent subcultures that prepare people differently for functioning in work organizations. Looking at these subcultures may help us understand some of the problems that result from variations in social learning among societies or among subgroups within a society. Influence of subcultures' relevance for gender and minority issues. The phenomenon of socio-cultural divergence can be illustrated by looking at two groups in the workforce, women and minorities. We are born into two broad subcultures based on gender, that is male or female. These are obvious physiological differences, but how much these contribute to later differences in the behavior men and women is the subject of much controversy. A good deal of evidence suggests that much dissimilarity occurs because of different socialization process for men and women. It is very important for the organization and the manager not to fall into habits of stereotyping different subcultures. Many people associate certain personality traits with different groups in our society. Sometimes this is useful, but more likely we find that it blinds us to really understanding the individual as the unique human being. Often with better information, we find that there are not as many differences as we expected. There is an additional key factor when considering the socialization process for women and minorities entering into new higher level positions in organizations. This is not only a process of change for the newcomer, but something requiring significant resocialization of existing members. Not only are we modifying the values, attitudes, and behavior of the new employee, we are also asking for substantial change on the part of others in the organization. This makes the process even more difficult. Cross-cultural comparisons. Early socialization processes deeply affect the expectations and behavior of a particular set of people. For example, in Japan, the Nenko system of lifetime commitment to an organization is often associated with centuries-old behavior pattern and value orientations. This system is based on traditional Japanese values of respect for elders, the importance of family and group social systems, and mutual responsibility, loyalty, and collaboration. However, the Nenko system is not universal in Japan. It is used only in the larger enterprise and does not cover temporary employees and outside contract workers. The system does appear to work well within the culture, but there are major questions about its appropriateness in other societies, such as the United States. The reverse of this is also true. Many modern US corporate practices are not easily transferred to other countries. This becomes particularly evident in multinational corporations operating in a foreign country. In the organizational socialization process abroad, we may find that we are requiring people to develop attitudes, values, and behavior patterns that are in conflict for the individual. As we develop more varied and complex organizations and recruit people from different subcultures, we can anticipate that the socialization process will become even more complex. Not only must individuals adjust, but the organization will have to adapt to the attitudes, beliefs, and behavior patterns that different people bring into the organization. We see an increasing possibility of having more diverse values, views, and even lifestyles among different participants and groups within the organizations. Induction. Induction is a process through which a new employee is introduced to the organization. It's a process of welcoming the individual into the organization. Purpose and need. An employee has to work with fellow employees and his supervisor. For this, he must know them, the way they work, and also the policies and practices of the organization so that he may integrate himself with the enterprise. Any neglect in the area of induction and orientation may lead to high labor turnover, confusion, wasted time, and expenditure. Induction program. A good induction program should cover certain points. They are: number 1, the company, its history and products, process of production, and major operations involved in his job. Number 2, the significance of the job with all necessary information about it, including job training and job hazards. Number 3, structure of the organization and the functions of various departments. Number 4, employee's own department and job and how he fits into the organization. Number 5, HR policy and sources of information. Number 6, company policies, practices, objectives and regulations. Number 7, terms and conditions of service, amenities and welfare facilities. Number 8, rules and regulations governing hours of work and overtime, safety and accident prevention, holidays and vacations, methods of reporting, tardiness and absenteeism. Number 9, grievance procedure and discipline handling. Number 10, social benefits and recreation services. And number 11, opportunities, promotions, transfer, suggestion schemes and job satisfaction. An induction program consists primarily of 3 steps. Number 1, general orientation by the staff. It gives necessary general information about the history and the operations of the firm. The purpose is to help an employee to build up some pride and interest in the organization. Number 2, specific orientation by the job supervisor. The employee is shown the department and his place of work, the location of facilities, and is told about the organization's specific practices and customs. The purpose is to enable the employee to adjust with his work and environment. Number 3, follow-up orientation by either the personnel department or the supervisor. This is conducted within 1 week to 6 months of the initial induction and by a foreman or a specialist. The purpose is to find out whether the employee is reasonably well satisfied with him. Through personal talks, guidance, and counseling, efforts are made to remove the difficulties experienced by the newcomer. Global placements. The HR managers take up the global placements activity, which involves: number 1, managing international relocation of expatriates. Number 2, providing a variety of services for relocated employees. HR managers will generate information about employees on job-related aspects, leadership skills, cultural openness and adaptation, language skills and attitude. Outplacement. Outplacement refers to in-house help provided by organization during the transition phases of downsizing and rehabilitation. The services offered include counseling, training, retraining, skill upgradation, etc. The services also include housing, reassignment, job placement, etc. Placements within the organization are necessary for career plans and also to address organizational changes. After initial placement, the employee will be moving to different positions and undertakes higher responsibilities. At times, there might be a geographical relocation, changes in job duties or work environment. These aspects will be dealt as promotions and transfers in the organization. Besides the mentioned instances, there are also instances where the employee gets separated from the organization, which might be named as separations, resignations, layoffs, downsizing, etc. These aspects are also explained briefly ahead. Any type of mobility serves certain purposes, which are: number 1, improves organizational effectiveness. Number 2, maximizes employee efficiency. Number 3, enables to handle change processes. And number 4, ensures discipline. You were listening to the audiobook by the School of Management Studies IGNOU for MBA program. Course code MMPC-002 Human Resource Management. Course Coordinator Professor Nayantara Padhi from School of Management Studies IGNOU. Voiceover by Harpreet Kaur. Edited by Tarannum Jahan. Program assisted by Jagbandhu Jana. Program produced by Dr. Manoj Kumar Singh. This program was brought to you by Electronic Media Production Center of Indira Gandhi National Open University.